In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains what potential is and why you need to live up to yours.
There's potential everywhere, whatever that is. You have potential. Your parents tell you that all the time. What is that? Well, it's the unrealized stuff of your being. Now, it's a very strange concept, potential, because you can't characterize it any way that you would characterize something that's real. Because it's not real, it's potential. But you act like it's real. You know, you'll feel guilty that you're not living up to your potential, you're not manifesting your potential. You want people to interact with you so that they allow you to demonstrate your potential. Like, you act as if it's a reality continually. You think as if it's a reality continually. You ask if your relationship has potential, you know. But it's a very, very strange substance, whatever this potential is. It's it's unrealized possibility, essentially, but you regard it as something that's fluid and something that can develop in all sorts of different directions, and something whose development you can shape, because otherwise why would you feel guilty? It's like, you know, if you're doing the wrong thing, you're realizing some potential in the wrong way, and then you feel bad about that. It's like, well, there's some sense of intrinsic morality operating at the bottom of that. We've talked a lot about that. Some of that's built in biologically, some of it's, you know, structured culturally, some of it's a consequence of you trying to, you know, trying to organize this plethora of semi-beings that you are into some integrated manner. Like, it's a very, very complicated thing. And it's not just arbitrary. Okay, so that's the very background, the dragon of chaos. Positive and negative, and it's the thing out of which everything springs. If you look at the Scandinavian world tree, for example, or world trees in general, you very frequently have a representation of a serpent that's associated with them. And the reason that that potential is regarded as serpentine is extraordinarily complicated, but I think it's partly because snakes shed their own skin, and so they can be reborn, so they're a symbol of transformation. And then they're sneaky and subtle, and so they appear in places you wouldn't necessarily expect them to, and then they're a terrible, terrible threat. But in overcoming that threat, you also develop. So not only are they a threat, but they're the kind of threat that makes you become strong while you face it. So, and that's partly why the snake is such an ambivalent figure in most mythology. So, okay, so that's complicated, but we'll return to that later. And then out of that, you might say, emerges the unknown as you encounter it. So there's potential itself, and then the first layer of potential are the things that you encounter that you don't understand. So I can give you an example of that. So let's say you're a 3-year-old or 2-year-old, that's better, and you're in your kitchen and a mouse runs across the room. And so you track it because, you know, your eyes pick up the movement, then you track the thing, and then it's an unexpected occurrence, so you don't know what it signifies, right? So that's the emergence of something tangibly unknown into your conceptual space. Now, it's not like you lack any knowledge of it. You can tell that what its size is, and you can get some estimation of its speed. You know, and I think that what you have to do when you think about whether or not something is unknown is you have to think about it in relationship to that hierarchy of perception that I keep throwing at you. You know, if something emerges, if you encounter an entity and you can map it at every single level of your value hierarchy, then it's known. You know how to interact with it at a micro level, and you know what its implications are for every other level of your conceptual being. You know what its implications are for the future. Like, you know exactly how to deal with that thing. It's mapped at every single level. There's other things that are only mapped at one level and not at others. So maybe, you know, you like the mouse, we'll say, for the child who's never seen a mouse, it's like it shares some commonalities with objects that the child is familiar with. But there's sufficient novelty so that it's also contaminated with the unknown, and that makes the child basically alert, semi-startled and alert. Now, the child will immediately refer to an adult it's a technical term actually, they'll look at the adult's face because the adult's face will broadcast the motivational and affective significance of that event. And so the child looks, references, and then reads off the face, and of course the speech and the bodily actions, exactly what that thing signifies, and then if the person that they're looking at jumps up on the table and screams, then that's one set of meanings, which is, God, this thing is magical, it's only this big, and look at what effect it has on, my aunt, for the sake of argument, who's, a pretty competent creature as far as I can tell, being 2 years old. And then if she just dismisses it, her actions are going to determine the meaning of that phenomenon. So that's how the transformation of the semi-known thing into the more known thing occurs. It occurs almost always in a social context. You can explore things by yourself, but you rarely actually do that by yourself. It's almost always you plugged into a social apparatus, So you might be doing the specific investigating, but the social apparatus is around you so that you can confer with it, and it also shapes the way that you're going to interact with that specific thing.